off the stage.
Folks, good morning. Morning. Gosh, very good in here.
You start. Good morning.
How y'all doing? No, you're happy to be in here and outside, right? Okay, so thank you all for being here. February 24th, 1996. 3 Cessnas are flying in international airspace, really on a rescue mission, to look for in the ocean Cubans that may have grabbed a raft, a makeshift boat, jumped into the ocean, trying to reach freedom. And trying to reach freedom from that repressive regime just 90 miles away from the United States. So 3 Cessnas were flying, just looking for those. And if they would see one of those rafts, they would notify the U.S. Coast Guard to go then rescue them. That's what they did. That's what they were doing on February 24th, 1996. But then all of a sudden, MiGs show up from the Castro regime. MiGs, using missiles, shot down 2 of those unarmed Cessnas in international airspace, killing 4 individuals, Mario de la Peña, Pablo Morales, Carlos Costa, and Alejandro Alejandre Jr. This was premeditated murder of 3 Americans and 1 U.S. resident. Premeditated murder. Ordered, as was known then and is known today, by Raul Castro himself. We know that because there are recordings. We know that because they've said that they did that. Fidel Castro said it in an interview, and Raul, there's an audio recording, among other sources, where they basically say, yes, we did it, and Raul Castro was the one who gave the order to go ahead and kill, in a premeditated, cold-blooded fashion, these individuals. And since then, many of us and our community has been asking for justice. And sadly, time and time again, the United States, for now decades, has just looked the other way, which we think is unacceptable, unforgivable, which is why, time and time again, and we can go back to Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, and Congressman Lincoln Diaz Balart, where they pleaded with the Clinton administration to just bring justice to these Americans who were murdered in cold blood. We, those of us here, wrote a letter to the President of the United States, the Attorney General, just asking for justice for these murdered individuals who were murdered in cold blood. But we have a different president now. We have a president who's not willing to look the other way when the national security interests of the United States are threatened, and in particular, when Americans are harmed. So today, there's a big announcement taking place in Miami. We're here. We're here. We expect that the day of justice is finally arriving. And that these individuals, and I want to mention their names again, Mario de la Peña, Pablo Morales, Carlos Costa, and Armando Alejandre, will have their day of justice. We are so grateful for this administration for not looking the other way, for the atrocities committed in Cuba by the regime, by the damage that that regime has done and continues to do to the national interest and the national security interests of the United States, and yes, for standing up for these murdered Americans whose day of justice is finally coming to fruition. Let me now, you want to be, who? Actually, I think we start with you. Is it seniority?
Well, then Carlos.
Then go ahead.
We're all the same.
Go ahead.
Carlos.
All right.
We're all in the same class.
We're on the same.
Yeah, but he's born in Cuba, so he goes first.
Okay. Just want to follow up on what my colleague Mario Diaz Balart has said and reiterate again what this is really all about. The number one job of a government is the protection of its citizens. And for far too long, this incident has gone without any repercussions for any of the people, or at least the person most responsible for this act, which was Raul Castro. And so, to reiterate again exactly what this was a flight of 3 civilian aircraft, Cessnas. They were on a humanitarian mission. They were looking for Cuban rafters in the Florida Straits. Now, mind you, we don't know how many hundreds, if not thousands, of Cubans actually died in the Florida Straits trying to make the crossing from Cuba to Florida to find freedom. Now, think about that. These Cubans that were fleeing the island would get on anything that would float, an inner tube, makeshift rafts. Some even converted pickup trucks into boats to get away from this murderous regime. And all these gentlemen and women in one of the planes that she was lucky it wasn't shot down, were just looking for these rafters in the middle of the Florida Straits so that they wouldn't die. And then they would report the position to the Coast Guard. That's all they were doing. They weren't carrying any drugs. They weren't doing anything illicit. And they were international waters, and they were American citizens. Why it's taken 30 years, I don't know. Why? But again, the number one job of any government is to protect its citizens. And finally, this administration, the Trump administration, has finally taken notice of that and said, yes, we will protect American citizens. And yes, maybe justice comes a little late in this case, but justice will be served. And there will be consequences to pay if you harm American citizens in international waters, international airspace, for no reason at all. And believe me, this was no reason at all. And so Mario de la Peña, Pablo Morales, Carlos Costa, Armando Alejandra Jr., their families, can get a sense of justice today, if in fact Raul Castro is indicted for murder down in Miami, which is what we expect. I'm very proud to have signed the letter on February 13th, along with Mario and Maria Salazar and Nicole Malliotakis, asking the Trump administration to do exactly what we expect is going to happen this morning. It is justice delayed, but at least it's justice. And it's something that we've been looking for, a long time. In my community down in South Florida, the people I represent have been looking for this day. I'm praying for this day for a very, very long time. And so with that, I will turn it over to my classmate from New York, Nicole Malliotakis.
Thank you. Thank you all for attending. This is a very important press conference. I want to thank Mario Diaz Balart for putting us together today as the Cuban Americans who represent our districts. And I'm from New York, New York's 11th district. I'm not from South Florida, but many of my constituents are now in South Florida. Today's a very it's a serious day, and it's a day that we've been waiting for quite some time. In fact, 30 years. It's been 3 decades since this tragedy happened, this murder of these 4 individuals. And the people of Cuban descent, whether they are here or whether they are in Cuba or anywhere around the world, have been waiting for justice. And it's not just been 3 decades, actually. It's been 67 years that they've been waiting for justice. The crimes committed by Raul Castro go much further than what we're possibly hearing those charges unveiled today. The reality is this is a communist regime that has brutally jailed, murdered, beaten its people. They have starved their people. They have stolen from their people. And much of it was at the direction of Raul Castro himself. And so today is about justice. We hope this is a first step in not just bringing Raul Castro to justice, so the people, the families of these 4 individuals, Mario, Pablo, Carlos, and Armando, see that finally someone is being held accountable, and the right person is being held accountable for their family's murder, relative's murder. But we hope that this will be a turning point in Cuba, that we will see the people of Cuba rise up and demand freedom and regime change once and for all. The reality is, when they last did this in 2021, we had a president who did not have their back. And so many of those individuals, including small children, were put in jail for going out in the street and simply speaking that they want freedom. They have nothing to defend themselves. They go out on the street and they call for freedom, and they were beaten, they were jailed, they were starved. And the last administration, the Biden administration, sat by and idly watched it happen and did absolutely nothing. Wouldn't even go there and give them internet at the request of the four of us. And it's shameful. So I'm proud to be here today with my colleagues. And I will just say one last thing. You hear some of our other colleagues who are very ignorant on this issue. They are very misguided on this issue. They don't understand the suffering that they have endured under the communist regime, and they have the audacity to blame America for the misery and the poverty and the starvation, the lack of access to food, medicine. It is disgraceful, and we will be here to counteract that ridiculous message and that anti-American message. Thank you to my colleagues for being such strong, vociferous advocates for the Cuban Americans here and Cubans in Cuba. And we just want our neighbor to be free, because remember, it's a national security issue as well. They have been in cahoots with Iran, with Communist China, with North Korea, with Russia. They provide bases to these individuals 90 miles from our shore. So this is much bigger than just what we're here about today. It is much larger. It's about the future of our own security and this Western Hemisphere. Thank you.
All right, well, I think I'm the last one, and I'm delighted to be here with my colleagues. We all represent South Florida, the heart of the Cuban exile community in the United States. And Nicole, that even though she represents, but I'm sure that you do have a lot of Cuban constituents. I am not gonna, I am not going to repeat what my colleagues have said. We all know that the Castro regime, Raul and Fidel, Raul being the defense minister, was the one who ordered a shooting down of those two American planes in the Florida Straits in international waters, just because they were trying to look for rafters and give them a hand and not to be drowned or be eaten by the sharks. So I'm not going to repeat. We know that the United States is going to do the right thing today, a little bit later on today. But I just want to put into perspective what this means for our communities and for the United States. Today is a glorious day for the Cuban people. After 6 decades of tragedy, of misery, of distress, Cubans will be free soon. And there are no words to describe the joy they feel, not only the Cubans on the island, but the Cubans that we represent in South Florida, who live abroad, others who live abroad, but we represent all of them all over the country and across the world. I repeat, today is a glorious day for those Cubans who had to leave their homeland unwillingly, the people that we represent in the city of Miami, only because of the cruelty and the wickedness of a group of gangsters, the Castro family, who did nothing but seize the island to turn it into their own business. The Castros are in the business of power, not in the business of feeding the Cuban people on the island. But thank God, everything indicates that it's over, and that we are at the beginning of the end. Today is the beginning of the end for the Castro family. And just like this poster says it, they belong to that group of gangsters. The Ayatollahs, Maduro, and he is pending, and that will end today. Thanks to President Trump. We thank the president who has taken the initiative to think about the Western Hemisphere, and especially about Cuba, because we know that Cuba is the epicenter of evil in this hemisphere. President Trump has set this agenda, the America First agenda. Well, Cuba falls right into it, because when it comes to the island, that is perfectly within the plan. A close Cuba, I mean, we're only 90 miles away. Cuba is only 90 miles away from the city that I represent, the city of Miami in South Florida. A friendly Cuba, a prosperous Cuba, will help with the United States economy, with politics, with immigration, and that is what this country needs. Friends are in this Western Hemisphere, friends around the United States. President Trump realized that we are deeply, and we are realize that, and we are deeply, deeply grateful to his administration and to his leadership. And today marks the moment when 60 years of destruction will come to an end. For that reason, I'm speaking on behalf of everyone that I have behind me. The message is for the Castro family. Understand this well, that your days are over. A federal indictment is serious stuff. If not, look at that example. Maduro thought that Trump was fooling, and he was just fooling him, and he was playing around. And President Trump gave him enough time for him to think what to do with his destiny. Look what Maduro did. He thought that President Trump was not serious. And look where Maduro is today, in a federal prison in New York. So we are sending the message to the Castro family. It's time for you to leave. It's time for you to heed the signal from the White House and do not fall into the abyss. You have the option not to wind up where Maduro is. You can leave now and let the island in the hands of the opposition forces, in the hands of freedom. So that destiny can bring Cuba to a different place. So once again, we thank the President of the United States for taking this action, for bringing justice. But like Maliatakis said, is not only the first thing, there's not only the first crime that the Castro family has committed against the Cubans. We're talking about 67 years of misery, of cruelty, of being morally despicable. And thank God to this administration and to the White House and to the American people that the Cubans will be free again and will be friends with the United States for the next 100 years. Thanks to all of you. I hear that in Spanish. Oh, he wants me to start in Spanish. Well, I don't.
You're there.
Okay. Well, do I know how to do that? Yes. So, para la prensa en español, mis colegas ya han hablado de los crímenes de los Castros. No tenemos que repetirlo. Sabemos que el día de hoy todo indica que Raúl Castro lo van a poner en la lista de los malos. Y ahí está, junto con el resto de los otros malos a nivel mundial que los Estados Unidos han tenido la interés, la fuerza para destruir y para eliminar para el bien de la humanidad. Por eso hoy es un día glorioso para los cubanos. Es un día glorioso porque la ayuda ha llegado y porque los Estados Unidos, después de 65 años, han decidido tomar la iniciativa de hacer lo correcto y liberar al pueblo cubano de los sátrapas, de los despreciables moralmente hablando de la familia Castro. Una familia que lo único que hizo fue utilizar la isla para su propio negocio. Lo único que hizo fue hacer de esa isla los esclavos, hacer de la isla un grupo de esclavos cubanos. Por eso estoy encantada de poder estar aquí con mis amigos, que todos representamos al exilio cubano en el sur de la Florida, para darle las gracias al presidente Trump y a esta administración, que después de 67 años ha hecho lo correcto, que es no solamente traer justicia para Mario, para Pablo, para Carlos Acosta y para Armando Alejandre, sino traer justicia para el pueblo cubano. Un pueblo que lleva años esperando que los Estados Unidos, el gran vecino del norte, los ayude. Y nosotros, los representantes de ellos, nunca nos hemos olvidado de que esa es la misión que tenemos porque representamos a los cubanos. Por eso, le damos muchísimas gracias al presidente Trump una vez más. Le damos gracias al presidente Trump una vez más y a esta administración por haber pensado en ese pueblo que nosotros, muchos de sus familiares, representamos y hacer the American Agenda, la agenda americana primero, porque una Cuba próspera, donde pueda ayudarlos en la economía, en la política, en la inmigración, tener un vecino tan cercano que sea bueno para los Estados Unidos, es the America First Agenda. Así que le doy la palabra a mis compañeros para que hablen en español y después si la prensa quiere hacer algún tipo de preguntas, pero sin duda que hoy es un día glorioso para el pueblo cubano.
No te lleves mis papeles.
No, pero tú no. Pero tú sabes leer.
No están aquí los... Gracias a todos ustedes por estar acá. No, pero siempre ayuda, ¿no? Por si acaso. La recordatoria. Febrero 24 de 1996, 3 avionetas civiles estaban volando sobre los estrechos de Florida, buscando solamente esos individuos que se hayan tirado en balsa, en cualquier cosa que flota para tratar de salir de esa cárcel que es Cuba, para llegar a las tierras de libertad. Y en ese día, en febrero, el régimen de Castro envió MiGs, aviones de caza, para derrumbar a esas 3 avionetas. Derrumbaron a 2 de ellas, asesinando en sangre fría a Mario de la Peña, Pablo Morales, Carlos Costa y Armando Alejandre Jr. 3 ciudadanos norteamericanos y un residente de los Estados Unidos. Y comenzando en ese momento, los miembros del Congreso, incluyendo la congresista Eliana Rosletren, el congresista Lincoln Díaz Balart, le exigieron al presidente Clinton justicia para estos individuos asesinados a sangre fría por el régimen. Y esa orden, lo sabemos y se sabía entonces, la dio, la orden de asesinar a estos 4 individuos, la dio Raúl Castro. Pero desafortunadamente, la administración del presidente Clinton engavetó un encauzamiento que se estaba preparando entonces por la Fiscalía de los Estados Unidos del sur de Florida. Esto ha sido reportado. No es que no se sabía quién había dado la orden. No es que no habían individuos en el gobierno de los Estados Unidos. La Fiscalía que querían actuar, comenzaron a preparar el encauzamiento, pero se engavetó por las órdenes de la administración del presidente Clinton. Pero desde entonces se está pidiendo justicia para estos jóvenes asesinados de una forma premeditada a sangre fría. Y la diferencia que hace una elección. Ahora tenemos un presidente que no está dispuesto a aceptar cuando se agreden a norteamericanos, cuando se hace daño a la seguridad nacional de los Estados Unidos, cuando se asesinan a nuestros ciudadanos. Y esta administración, hoy, esperamos, va a anunciar el encauzamiento del que dio la orden de este asesinato a sangre fría, que es Raúl Castro. Algo que se ha estado exigiendo, pidiendo por décadas. Y que distintas administraciones, comenzando con la presidencia de Clinton, que engavetó un encauzamiento, lo ocultó, lo paró, lo congeló. Pero hoy, gracias a Dios, hay un presidente totalmente distinto. Y por fin va a venir la justicia merecida para estos 4 jóvenes que murieron asesinados a sangre fría. Estamos eternamente agradecidos a esta administración, al Departamento de Justicia de los Estados Unidos y no solamente por este día de justicia para estos que han sido asesinados, pero por todo lo que está haciendo para proteger la seguridad nacional de los Estados Unidos enfrente el peligro, el reto que significa tener este Estado terrorista, corrupto, asesino a 90 millas de los Estados Unidos. Pero por todo lo que está haciendo para enfrentarse a ese régimen y también por fin traer justicia a estos 4 individuos que se lo han merecido por décadas y por fin ese día viene llegando. Ahora mi gran colega, Chief Mayor Congressman Jiménez.
Gracias, Mario. Muchas gracias a mis 2 colegas que están aquí, que sí, nosotros representamos al exilio cubano, que muchos de ellos viven en nuestras comunidades, en Hialeah, Miami, y otras partes en Southwest Dade, donde yo represento también. Para mí esto, no voy a decir más lo que es esto. Esto es un día de justicia para estos 4 individuales, a Mario de la Peña, Pablo Morales, Carlos Costa y Armando Alejandre. Pero también, esto es un mensaje. Esto es un mensaje del presidente Trump. El mensaje es para Raúl Castro, que sí, ahora viene a la justicia. Y es lamentable que nada más que es un cargo sobre lo que hizo ese día. porque Raúl Castro tiene mucho más delitos para que podemos encauzarlo contra el pueblo cubano en Cuba. No solamente es el asesinato de estos 4 individuales, pero estoy seguro de cientos y miles más en la isla que fueron asesinados por este régimen. Y todos los miles también que murieron en las aguas del Strait de la Florida, tratando de escapar a ese infierno que es Cuba. Tu mensaje para Raúl Castro. Ya tus días están contados. Esto es un mensaje a Gaesa, que de verdad es el que dirige la isla. También, sus días también están contados. Y el mensaje es que el presidente Trump no va a mirar, no va a quitar su vista de nuestro hemisferio, no le va a quitar la vista al lugar donde de verdad empieza. Es el cáncer de nuestro hemisferio, es Cuba. Y el régimen cubano es el cáncer de nuestro hemisferio. Cuando los Estados Unidos, nosotros capturamos a Maduro, ¿quién estaba rodeando a Maduro? Cubanos. No eran venezolanos, eran cubanos, tratando de salvar ese asesino, ese criminal. Pero en ese caso también no lo lograron. El presidente Trump dio las órdenes para capturar y traer a la justicia a Nicolás Maduro. Vamos a ver lo que sucede ahora. Si Raúl va a estar encausado, como creemos que sí va a estar, que va a ser el presidente Trump. Un mensaje muy claro al pueblo cubano, que ya el pueblo americano, el presidente de los Estados Unidos, viene a ayudar y vamos a ayudar al pueblo. ¿Por qué? Porque el pueblo lo merece, pero también porque Cuba es una amenaza a la seguridad de los Estados Unidos. Ha sido una amenaza a la seguridad de los Estados Unidos, es una amenaza a la seguridad de los Estados Unidos. Y en el futuro, si sigue este régimen, va a ser una amenaza hasta más. Sabemos ya un reportaje que tienen drones en Cuba, por lo menos 300, que pueden llegar a todas partes del estado de la Florida y más a los Estados Unidos. Así que Cuba es una amenaza, siempre ha sido, y yo creo que va a ser una amenaza hasta más ahora. Así que el presidente Trump y los Estados Unidos no debemos de tolerar ese tipo de amenaza a 90 millas de nuestro estado de la Florida. Y nosotros, que somos representantes de la parte que está más cercana a Cuba, no vamos a tolerar ese tipo de amenaza que venga de Cuba. Así que lo que esperamos es que este es el primer día, el primer paso para el fin, para llegar al fin de este régimen, al fin de este nightmare que ha sido por 67 años esta, se supone, revolución cubana, que no es una revolución de verdad, lo que es una manera que una banda de bandidos se puedan controlar una isla y poner todas las ganancias en sus bolsillos, que eso es lo que está pasando ahora con Gaesa. Así que otra vez al pueblo cubano, este día no solamente es traer justicia a la familia de estos 4 individuales y también a estos 4 individuales, pero también el primer paso para traer justicia para el pueblo cubano. Gracias.
Okay.
If you have any questions, we'll take some questions. All right, yeah, you want to go? Why don't we start with you in the back and then we'll, yep.
Congressman, other individuals who have been charged in this case, the majority of them have never been brought to justice. They've remained out of reach of U.S. law enforcement. After what we saw with Maduro in Venezuela in January, do you believe the Trump administration should take a similar step if Raul Castro is indicted later this afternoon?
It certainly is an option, and it's certainly something that Raul Castro has to think about. It happened some 30-something years ago in Panama, and it happened just a few months ago in Venezuela with Nicolás Maduro. So it's not without precedent. And so, do I think it should happen? I think that Raul Castro should be brought to justice. But again, that's up to the President of the United States, the manner in which Raul Castro will be brought to justice.
Let me also,
I think, yeah.
go.
I think that's exactly what should happen. And that's exactly what is good for the United States. We cannot have these thieves running that island any longer because we know that they have given a platform to our enemies for years. Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, China, and Russia. So as I said, it's the first time that an American president is thinking about the Western Hemisphere and is going to do anything he needs to do in order to protect the fatherland, the homeland. And that's what we need to do. So what President Trump, I believe, is doing is just sending a very clear message to Raul, look at Maduro. Look at Maduro. If you do not want to wind up where he's at, then go. Because that's the beauty of the United States, that we're giving these thugs the opportunity of leaving so we can make things easier for the people. It happened in Venezuela. I do believe that is going to happen in Cuba. And that's exactly what the president needs to do. Send that message. If they don't heed the message, then it's going to happen the same thing to Maduro. Because President Trump is thinking about the Western Hemisphere, which is like Marco Rubio said, whatever thing happens in the Western Hemisphere, because of the proximity, it affects us, the homeland, faster and with more severity. So I do believe that Trump, who has no fear, will do, if they don't get it, he will do exactly what he did with Maduro, bring Maduro to justice.
Por acá.
Sí.
La misma. Sí. Buenos días, Isabel Morales de Espectro Noticias. ¿Me pueden decir lo mismo que acaban de decir en español, por favor?
¿De qué? ¿Cuál-
Sobre cuál serían los siguientes pasos a seguir. Si creen que va a pasar lo mismo con Castro que pasó con Maduro.
Lo que creo que sin duda ahora el presidente de los Estados Unidos tiene opciones. Y también un mensaje a Raúl Castro que tiene esas opciones. Y que mire lo que pasó a Noriega, lo que pasó a Maduro, y que el presidente de los Estados Unidos, cuando él desea, también lo puede hacer para él. Pero también el mensaje es que se deben de ir. Ya, este régimen se tiene que ir porque este régimen ha destruido esa isla. Y nosotros no podemos negociar con ellos. No se puede negociar con ellos. Porque es una banda de bandidos que le está robando todo al pueblo cubano para su propio beneficio. Eso es una empresa que se llama Gaesa, que está el presidente de Gaesa es Raúl Castro. Así que se lleva todo. Así que sí, el mensaje es que sí, es una opción que tiene el presidente de los Estados Unidos. Deseamos eso, como dijo María, que el exilio lo desea, sin duda. La gente que nosotros representamos, sin duda, desean que vayan a capturar a Raúl Castro. Pero eso es la decisión del presidente de los Estados Unidos.
Por acá, por acá, por acá. Aquí, Sofía.
Ari González, Martín Noticias. Aquí tenemos una imagen, 3 dictadores, uno capturado, el otro eliminado y Raúl Castro pending. Han transcurrido ya 30 años desde este crimen atroz. Las familias aún están esperando justicia. Raúl Castro tiene 94 años, no es el gobernante oficial de Cuba, aunque sí la persona que más influye en el régimen cubano. Tenemos a Miguel Díaz-Canel. ¿Cuál sería el impacto real, más allá de que Raúl pague por sus crímenes?
Sí, pero primero vamos a estar claros. Díaz-Canel es el Dorticós de turno. ¿Usted se acuerda quién es Dorticós? La gran mayoría del pueblo cubano dentro de Cuba no se acuerda quién es Dorticós, ni aquí en el exilio, ni en Washington se acuerdan. Dorticós era el presidente, era el llamado presidente bajo Fidel Castro, ¿por qué? Creo que eran 16 años, algo de eso. Y vamos a estar claros, Dorticós, igual que Díaz-Canel, es una cosa de coña. Pero,
Estamos en el Congreso.
no, eso no es una palabra mala.
Ah, no.
No, eso no es una palabra mala. El fin de la palabra, la letra,
Ajá,
cambia el significado dramáticamente.
¿Cómo se dice eso?
De coña. Sí. Raúl Castro es el poder. Y la familia Castro es el poder de esa dictadura, de ese régimen. Lo que tenemos hoy en día es un presidente que no está dispuesto a aceptar un régimen terrorista a 90 millas de los Estados Unidos. Esta administración ha estado muy clara en hablar sobre el peligro que significa para los Estados Unidos. Obviamente también sabemos el desastre que significa y ha significado por 67 años al pueblo de Cuba. Usted mencionó, sí, que son 30 años y que nunca había justicia y que se sabía quién era el que había dado la orden, pero en el caso del presidente Clinton engavetó un encauzamiento que ya estaba preparándose. Eso era la política del presidente Clinton y otros presidentes demócratas, de ayudar al régimen de Castro. ¿Por qué lo hacen? Es otra pregunta, pero la historia eso claramente lo recuerda. En que el caso de este presidente, un presidente que ama la paz, que ha negociado un grupo, creo que son 8 tratados para evitar o parar guerras, algunas de ellas que han estado en guerra por décadas. También es el mismo presidente que no está dispuesto a aceptar que maten norteamericanos, que violen los derechos del pueblo norteamericano y que sean peligro para los Estados Unidos. Y por lo tanto, tomó medidas para eliminar a Soleimani, a Baghdadi, al grupo terrorista ISIS, utilizando las Fuerzas Armadas de los Estados Unidos. Igual que utilizando los héroes de las Fuerzas Armadas de los Estados Unidos, hoy se encuentra en una cárcel Nicolás Maduro. Ese es el presidente Trump. ¿Y ahora qué vemos? El encauzamiento, por fin, algo que, repito, presidentes demócratas han no solamente rehusado de hacer, engavetaron, el encauzamiento no solamente del que ordenó el asesinato de estos 4 jóvenes, en sangre fría, pero que también es el que controla el poder y el dinero que le roban al pueblo cubano dentro de la isla. Esto es un momento muy grande, muy importante, con mucha, que significa mucho, pero no es el único ejemplo. Aquí hay una carta que un grupo de nosotros le enviamos al secretario Blinken y el secretario también de la Seguridad Interna de los Estados Unidos, mencionando un piloto que estaba involucrado en este asesinato, que durante la administración de Biden le dejaron entrar a los Estados Unidos sabiendo quién era y estaba en el proceso hasta de la ciudadanía, de la residencia. Y esto no es que no lo sabían, porque aquí está la carta que yo le envié entonces a la administración de Biden. ¿Y qué hicieron? Nada. Le dieron la bienvenida aquí, a las tierras de libertad, a uno que estaba involucrado en el asesinato de estos jóvenes. Ese hombre hoy en día está preso. ¿Por qué? Porque en una democracia las elecciones tienen consecuencias. Hoy tenemos un presidente de los Estados Unidos, Donald Trump, que no está dispuesto a aceptar el peligro a la seguridad nacional de los Estados Unidos en este hemisferio, el asesinato de norteamericanos con impunidad, y por eso hoy es un día muy importante, pero es uno de muchos que vienen en el futuro muy próximo.
One more question and we gotta go.
All right.
¿Puedo
Who do you want to
solamente
go?
añadir a
Let me go.
esto?
Dale. Let me get.
¿De qué me hablas de Díaz Canel? Si aquí no manda más nadie que los Castro. Por eso la administración de los Estados Unidos, según los últimos reportes, están hablando con Castro, el hijo, el nieto, el sobrino. Punto. Sabemos muy bien, y los cubanos saben muy bien, y la gente que nosotros representamos sabemos muy bien que hay un solo poder. Cuando mis compañeros hablan de Gaesa, Gaesa mantiene el 60% de la economía del país. Nunca se había visto... 70. Nunca se había visto de que hay un gobierno dentro del gobierno y que cuando los funcionarios del gobierno oficial, como Díaz Canel, no saben en realidad cuáles son los réditos ni cuánto es la economía que Gaesa maneja. Estamos hablando de que cuando me preguntas 60 años, there's a new sheriff in town, como se dice en inglés. Hay un nuevo sheriff en la casa y ese sheriff decidió ocuparse del hemisferio occidental y específicamente de la isla de Cuba, que es el epicentro del mal en contra de los Estados Unidos. Punto, no hay más nada que hablar. Se llama de voluntad política. Y gracias a Dios que después de 65 años hay voluntad política en la administración de los Estados Unidos en salir de estos sátrapas, para beneficio de los Estados Unidos, de los americanos y de los cubanos que viven en la isla y de nuestros constituents.
One more question. All right, who's going to
Si
be?
puede, por favor, rápidamente explicar cómo se traería a Raúl
No
Castro.
more English. That's it. No one else. in
English.
English.
All right,
That's right. Let's just do one English now.
We gotta go.
It's been reported that
Where are you with?
Foreign Policy magazine, Rachel Oswald, thank you. Axios reported yesterday that there's intelligence that suggests Cuba is in possession of 400-something drones,
We've known that for a
concerning
while.
drones. And the president of Cuba has threatened a bloodbath if the U.S. takes military action, presumably, to carry out on the law enforcement operation, such as I didn't understand everything that was said today, but Are you concerned about?
So can
US
I answer
preparedness?
that and then I'll give you, do you really think that the Castro family is going to dare to attack with drones?
I do.
The United States?
I do.
Well, if they do, you know what that means, right? So, I mean, I don't even have to tell you because I'm not speaking for the president. I do not know what the Department of War is going to do. But we do know that the Castros know better. And I do not believe that they will dare to do that because it will be something terribly bad for them, which I cannot go into. I do also want to stress the fact that how come they can buy 400 drones when they don't have electricity, water, medicine, clothes, nothing for their population? There goes to show you who they are. They can invest in drones to attack us, but they cannot invest in food for their
I can
own.
follow up, regardless of the morality of the Cuban regime.
Okay?
The idea that U.S. troops could die in large numbers or be injured in large numbers, how does that factor into the decision to try to seize Raul Castro? Like, is it worth that kind of American life, even if ultimately it results in
No one
his
has
arrest?
mentioned that there will be any United States troops on the island of Cuba. No one has mentioned that. Look at Venezuela. I do believe that we should follow that example, but I'm going to give my colleagues the opportunity.
I hardly ever disagree with my colleague. I will disagree with her on one thing, that Cuba possessing 400 drones is a direct threat to the United States. And so,
That's true, too.
okay, and so that's why Cuba poses a security threat to the United States. Those 300 drones, if they're anything like the ones that are used in the Ukrainian war or actually right now Iran is using, they have the ability to reach just about any part of the southeast United States. And so that's why Cuba poses a direct threat to the United States. Do we have the capability to shoot them down? Yeah, we have the capability to shoot them down, okay? Doesn't mean that they won't use them, okay? We don't know if they will, but the fact they even have them does pose a threat to the United States. And so, the president, when he captured Nicolas Maduro, there was always a threat to and a risk to the armed forces of the United States because that was a legal it was a legal action, but had to be guarded by U.S. military because Maduro was being surrounded by Cuban security, and they had to get through Cuban security in order to arrest him. Same is likely, obviously, in Cuba, but the president will take that in consideration. We don't know what's going to happen, but we do know that other people have been indicted, other leaders have been indicted around this hemisphere, and more than one president, has taken action against those leaders that were indicted and sent military troops to carry out that legal action. And so, again, it's an option that the president has. These four individuals are screaming and yelling from their grave for justice. Their families are asking for justice. And the Cuban people are asking for justice because they've been suffering for 65 years. No, I said it in Spanish. I didn't say it in English. These are just four of probably thousands of people that Raul Castro has murdered throughout his time in Cuba. And then you also have to think about the hundreds, if not thousands, of people that died in the Straits of Florida trying to reach freedom because of the conditions that were created on the island that forced them basically to throw themselves into the sea, into the ocean, in order to seek freedom. Who caused that? Raul Castro and Fidel Castro. Those are the ones that caused those conditions to force these people to take that extraordinary action. And so, it's time for justice, all right? And I'm very happy that the Trump administration, this president, is taking decisive action against this regime, which not only has denied its people freedom for over 65 years, all right, and put thousands of people in prison, political prisoners, simply for asking for freedom, has killed God knows how many people. It's time, this president has finally seen that, and that regime poses a threat to our security here in the United States.
Okay,
Let me
that's
just,
all the time we
we'll
have.
take, I
We
just
need
want to
to
make,
vote.
I want to make one last statement and important question. Look, every thug, every gangster in history always likes to blame the United States and always talks about how it's going to be a bloodbath if anything happens to try to eliminate their power. Soleimani used to say that. Baghdadi acted and, was responsible for a lot of deaths. Clearly, Maduro was saying that every single day. Today, we're talking about the indictment, the possible indictment of a person who ordered the murder of 3 American citizens and 1 American resident who were flying Cessnas in international airspace. But is there any doubt that that regime, which has been on the state sponsor of terrorism list since the 1980s, and then a couple of Democratic presidents to try to appease the regime took them off, and then they've been put back on. So it's a state sponsor of terrorism. It harbors fugitives from U.S. law. I can give you names. It harbors terrorists and terrorist groups, ETA, FARC, Hezbollah, Polisario even has trained in Cuba, and we can go on and on. Hamas. It has sent troops throughout the hemisphere and throughout the world. Obviously, we all know the example of those who were protecting Maduro from the Venezuelan people were Cuban troops. By the way, while the regime in Cuba denied that they were there until right before the U.S. did what it did, the Ukrainian intelligence, and we had a hearing with them in Congress, has stated that there are up to 20,000 Cubans fighting with Putin's troops against the Ukrainians. And now we also know, right, that they now have hundreds of Iranian drones that can strike the homeland. I can speak for days about why it's such a national security threat to the United States. I forgot to mention, the largest armament shipment in violation of UN sanctions to North Korea, came from where?
Cuba.
From Cuba. By the way, an island where it can't feed its people, it doesn't have electricity for its people, but they figure out ways to do harm to the United States, our national security around the world. It is a clear and present danger to the United States of America.
Congressman, we
Controlled
gotta finish.
by one family. This president is not willing to look the other way, which is why we are extremely grateful to President Trump, his administration, and the leadership coming from President Trump. Thank you all very much for being here today. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. We actually have a 10 o'clock coming in.
Okay, let's
momentarily.
grab that.
Those who are not covering that 10
Thank
o'clock,
you
we
all.
need you to go
Thanks.
out. We cannot do any interviews inside the studio. No interviews inside the studio, guys. You gotta stay outside.